Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to do something I was asked to do probably a few months back now, and that's to go over doing a leak down test on a two-stroke. And there's not a lot to it. It's just kind of hard to get started because you got to find everything that so you can plug your holes, and it's more of an equipment search than anything, unless you have a kit or something. I've got a kit because I do a lot of them. I've had them for many years, but you don't need one. All you need is a bunch of basic plumbing supplies, really. And I'm going to kind of show you. And sometimes I have to make stuff too, So you just do what you have to do to do the project that you're working on. So let's kind of get looking at some of it here. This CT-1 that I picked up, I don't know, a few months back, I don't know the history on it. I haven't been into it. This is as far as I've been into it, just pulling it apart here so I can check the seal. I haven't had the head off. I haven't had the side cover off, any of that. And I thought this would be a good candidate to do that. And eventually I'm going to need to get into this thing, so I'm going to need to know its, know the integrity of it. So really all you need is a couple, whatever bikes you're working on. These expandable soft plugs you can get at the parts store, the auto parts store, or even at, I've seen them at the farming supplies. We have a Big R or North 40 here. They carry this kind of stuff. And, just to show you my kit, I've got a Motion Pro that I've had for many years. But, for you that have a boot on your carburetor, these work very good because they're already made for you. You just you might have to change your fitting around, but you just put this in place of your carburetor and tighten the clamp down. Makes it very easy. And they give you several of them, for different sizes. And there's they give you this thing here that I have never used. I think it might be for a Honda or something, an exhaust port cover, but I've never used it. A lot of this stuff in here I've never used. It's usually these expandable soft plugs that you need. And in this case, this doesn't have the carburetor boot, so I had to make one, and this is just a piece of aluminum that I made to replace the carburetor and put a fitting in it. And I just tapped this to 1/8 national pipe with a 1/4 inch nipple to fit my pump. And this is the pump they give you. And I haven't had any trouble with this thing. It's a really nice pump. You check it all, check all your fittings, check your gauge. They've got a little release here like they do on when you're doing a compression check. But I think I probably paid $150 or so for this kit several years ago. And up to that time, I was just using stuff I'd bought or made. So, and I'm still using stuff I've made. So I'm going to show you how I do this, and just bring you along on the ride. Stand by. Okay, first thing you got to do, you notice here that I've got the piston down to the bottom. You drop that all the way down so your ports and everything will be open, and make sure you clean your anything you're sealing. Make sure you clean it good to get all the debris off. You don't need to introduce leaks into your project. All right, now I just add a piece of rubber and I cut that to fit this. I just used a punch set that I got from Harbor Freight to put the holes in. This piece here, I just had a piece of aluminum. You want something thick enough that's not going to warp up when you bolt it up. So make sure you use something thick enough. It can be steel, it can be probably plastic, anything that you can use. In this case, I just put a little bit of the Yamaha bond, or 3 bond, I think it is, the Kawasaki stuff, to seal my fitting. And matter of fact, I just went to the hardware store and got this because I was out of them. I used a brass one for something else one day, so I used my part that I was using for this. So you just put your rubber seal on there. Let's see, I think I'm going to turn that this way. No, better go the other way. Just want to make sure it'll cover the hole. Like I say, there's no rules to this really. Very few anyway. Nope. I'm having trouble getting my holes lined up here. Do it before we put it on, that's the best way. Just make sure you've got a hole to get into access for air there too. Now sometimes I use a fitting in the spark plug hole to do this, and I've got some of those. Some of these that I've just made, I just take a spark plug, break the top off, and put a fitting on it and weld them up. So if you're doing it through the spark plug hole, you're going to have to find some way to make something to fit. I think they probably have something, but I've just never used it. Motion Pro didn't put anything like that in the kit I've got. Now this doesn't have to be terrible tight. It's got a good rubber seal on it, and that's all it needs. Now I'm just going to flip this up. Now, on the exhaust port, you know, I haven't done anything to this. I just pulled the exhaust pipe thing off, the adapter. So you can see the piston is down, so that has access to the exhaust port. You want to make sure that that air can get through. That's why you want the piston really down at bottom dead center. There, it's all the way down. But just by looking at this, see, it looks pretty clean in there. So that tells me that I think this thing has been rebuilt pretty recently, because it's really clean in there. I have not cleaned that whatsoever. So my point is, though, if you got carbon and oil in there, you want to clean it to where it is like this, because it will not seal if you don't do that. Okay, now I've just got an expandable soft plug, and like I say, you can get these at the hardware store, and it's not going to go in there all the way. You just want it in there as far as you can. I think I need to get it a little smaller. There, that's probably good. And then you just tighten that up to to expand it out into the exhaust port where it's tight. And it doesn't have to be terrible tight. That's probably good. Okay, and then like I said, now I've already checked this, but you know, anything can happen. But if you just check on where your gauge goes in, all your fittings, all the plastic fittings, this bulb down here, this is one of those like they use in the hospital to check your blood pressure with. I don't know if they've got them anymore like this, but that's what it used to be. But we're not going to use that much pressure, so we don't need terrible good fittings and stuff. Now I'm just going to put the hose onto that fitting that I just put together there. And we're going to pump this up, see what we got. Now, you don't want to exceed 6 or 7 pounds. That's all you want. See, it's not too bad. It's leaking down. What you want is about no more than a pound loss in a minute. Everything will run okay if you don't lose more than a pound a minute. But you can tell that this one is leaking, so it's already down to 4, and it continues to go down, and it hadn't even been a minute yet. So the things that you need to look for is any place that is put together on the engine. That could be, you want to check here, even though that you're going to check at the exhaust port. We're going to use some soap and water. Let me pump that back up. Just soap and water, and you're looking for bubbles. So I'm not seeing anything. I believe we've got a good seal. On the exhaust. Not seeing anything, so I think we're good. Next thing I want to check is my seal right here behind the magneto. I'm not seeing anything. So that seal seems to be good. Okay, so you've got another seal on the clutch side. Now, normally what will happen over there, if this engine was running and it was smoking excessively, you're probably drawing in oil out of the crankcase into your premix, into the 2-cycle engine area here. I had a Kawasaki a few months back that was doing just that. It was pulling fuel in, or oil in from the crankcase. And you know, all of you know that have 2-strokes, you know how much they normally smoke. And if it's smoking excessively, there's a problem. Okay, next thing we need to check would be like the gasket area right here. Now you can look at this and you can see it's kind of greasy. So that is or could be a problem. But it's greasy, but it's dry. except where I've been spraying water on it there. But that, I think, is okay. And you'd have, of course, to look on the other side too. And another thing we need to do is check our intake side here. And I'm just showing you for for the sake of showing you here. Otherwise, I would go all the way around this and really scrutinize it. Okay. Now I'm trying to keep my air pressure up. And like I say, you don't want to go over. If you go more than 6 or 7 pounds, you can blow your seals out. So you don't want to do that. But we've still got a leak. Okay. We've got a gasket up here now. And I want to show you. See all the grease? I'm hoping you can see it. I just don't know whether it shows up or not. It looks pretty greasy in there, as it did here, but this looks wetter to me. Okay, so let's get the pressure pump back up. Oh, lo and behold, look at that. I hope you can see it. See all the bubbles coming from between the head and the cylinder? That's where the majority of our leak is coming from. See it in there? So that is the first place we need to check. Now, if you've checked all your sealing surfaces and you still haven't found that leak, then you need to start looking where the two case halves come together here. This is the only place you're going to have a problem, is right here. It's not going to be over here at the side cover or anything like that. That's going to be the seal on the inside. But that is a place. But see, that's looking dry. You know, even back here, you know, it looks greasy here, but up here at the seam, it's dry. But, yeah, this is really, you can see it really bubbling up there now. I just don't know how good this is going to show up on the camera. But that's definitely a problem area right there. I think that's where we're going to look. Again now, make sure that you don't overdo it and blow your seals out. So this is actually maintaining. It's dropping down to looks like about 2.5 there, and it's really slowing down at that point. But when you go back up to, say, almost 6, it's actually holding a little better than it was. It's still dropping though. You can see it. See, it's dropped down to 4.5. There's 4. Okay. So I think we've isolated our problem here. I'm just going to flip this around the other way here and see if there's any more issues on the other side. Oh yeah. See it right there? Our head's the problem. Now, since this looks like it was rebuilt, I'm going to say it's one of two things. It's either they didn't put a head gasket in it, or, oh boy, look at that. It's really bubbling back down there. And we're already down to 3 pounds. So it's either doesn't have a head gasket at all, or the head is warped, or there is a groove or something on the cylinder or on the mating surface. We'll just say that, mating surface. So let me get some tools here, and we'll go ahead and pop the head off and just take a look, see what the problem is. Oops. Of course, we didn't check around the spark plugs, but that's would have probably been the next place to look, since we were kind of coming up from the base up. Well, there's a gasket there. All right, so let's take a look here. Yeah, there's a gasket. That thing has not had very many miles on it. I still see the crosshatch in the cylinder. And let's see, I believe it says 60. I have to raise the piston up now where I can see it. $66.75, so I believe that's third over. And then let's take a look at the head here. Yeah, see all the oil around out here where the head gasket goes? So that's where it was leaking. Let's clean it up a little bit and see if we can tell. Oh, something's happened here. This is not looking good at all. So I see a big hole right here, and right there. I think we detonated a piston or at least rings. This is pretty beat up, but you can see a hole right here. Let's see if I can get a ruler. I don't know how much you can see here. See right there? There's a hole, and another one right here where something has hit that. Let me go clean it up real quick. Okay guys, after I cleaned this up, you can certainly tell that something pinged it pretty good all up in here. And if you look at where the gasket actually fits on there. The sealing area, you can see this out to right here. From here in, you can kind of see a ring. That's the part that's sealing. And you can see that it's sitting right over the top of this big crater right here. And that was most of the problem. You can see all the wet oil out here, and here, and back here. So it was just leaking out of the head. It's just, this head is really no good. It just looks like they've tried to clean it up so much out here that it's not even formed right anymore. I'm gonna put some machinist dicom on this and go over and try to flatten it out, just see where the big non-sealing area is. But I'm pretty sure we're going to find most of it right there. But what I did find out was, yeah, these things, so 175, it's 66 millimeter, so we're 66.75, so this is third over, and it's pretty tight. I think it's probably a good bore, and like I said, I could see down inside it, and it looked like it hadn't been run very much. You know, you can still see a lot of the crosshatch, and there's really no lip up here at the top. So that's, I think, going to be a good bore if there's nothing else wrong with it. Just need to get a head for it. Let me clean this up a little bit, and we'll just put a little dicom on it. And I'll let that dry, and we'll take it over here and lap it a little bit on a piece of glass, and we'll just see how it comes out. Okay, I just got a little piece of glass here and some 400 grit sandpaper, wet and dry, and I've got that cylinder head coated with. If you've watched me do some of the other videos where I take and lap these cylinder heads, you've seen me do this before. And you don't push down on it, you just let the weight of the head do the work for you. All you got to do is move it a little bit. And move it both ways. All right. Again, you see the dark spot right here. That's right in the sealing surface. So that's where our major leak was, right there. And right here at the edge. Because the gasket would only go just like that. So this thing was it was leaking out here. Actually, it was tighter than it probably should have been. But there and there for sure. So this one just needs a cylinder head. It's not worth welding them up when you can buy a head for 35 bucks. So that would be the other fix. But this one has just really been abused. So I think we'll just see if we can find another one. Now, something I was going to show you too, if you're looking for if you're looking to make your own pump or something like that, I have looked on Amazon, and the bulbs that I have on this this bulb, you can buy every part of this on Amazon. You can buy the hose, you can buy the fittings, you can buy the gauge. Now, there's not any reason to get a big gauge. See, this one only goes up to 30 psi. You just don't need it because you're not going to put more than 7 in. So if you have a 300-pound gauge and you're trying to measure 7, you're going to have trouble doing it. So try to get the smallest gauge that you can, and probably 30 is going to be just about as small as you can find. And there again, like I said, I keep some of these things around. Actually, I had to go to the hardware store and get some. I was out of them, but just get you some fittings and some expandable soft plugs, and you're probably going to have to make some of your stuff anyway. So, but anyhow, what my point was, most of these parts are available, and they're not very much. You can probably build this whole the gauge, the fittings. You don't really need this block. The only reason they have that block is to put their name on it and to have that release, and you don't need that. So if you had the gauge and a coupler right here that would screw into that and this, and then get your bulb, you're good to go. And what I was going to show you is I do a lot of automotive work too. So I have this, which is a Mighty Vac, and you can do the same thing with this. I use this to bleed brakes and that sort of thing. You can pull a vacuum with this, and you can put pressure in. So these come with, I use this little item right down here for my when I bleed brakes, and you've got a lot of fittings here for your brakes also. And it comes with some line, and anyhow, like I say, you can do this with this too. There's many different things. If you're working on different applications, cars and motorcycles, then maybe a Mighty Vac would be better. But anyhow, I think we covered most of it here. And like I say, when we check, we want to check the seal here and the head gasket. Check your intake, make sure it's sealed every place it could leak. Same on the exhaust. And if you're not finding anything, pull the plug out, pump it up, and listen. You might be able to hear it leaking into the oil. And if you still haven't found it, check where your cases come together, the split. It'll be up here though. It'll be up where the crankshaft goes. But check your base gasket, your head gasket, and that's where ours was on this one. And you can find it. And these things run a lot better, even if you're within the 1 pound per minute. If you can get that to not leaking at all at 6 pounds of pressure, you're golden. Now, if you got a twin cylinder, that's a little different. You got to check most of the parallel twins that Yamaha and Suzuki had. They have I think they call it a labreth seal that seals between the two cylinders. Those sometimes leak, and they know that they're going to, so you have to check both cylinders at the same time on a twin. I'm not sure on the 4 cylinders and triples. I would assume it would have to be the same way, because you're going to have some leak between the cylinders. So right now the only thing we're worried about is single cylinders, but I've got some twins coming up. I don't know when I'm going to get to them, but I'm satisfied both of them have a vacuum leak somewhere. So we'll be getting on this again, and you'll be seeing the equipment used again. Of it. We actually had this, I had not done this. I had checked around the seal, and I had checked. I knew the head gasket was leaking, but I had not took it apart, and I didn't know what was happening inside until we took it apart now. So this was the real deal, and we found the leak ourselves. We pulled it apart. We found out why it's leaking. You know, this thing, it grenaded sometime along the way, and there's plenty proof of it up here that a lot of things are wrong. And in this case, we're going to have to find a head. Cylinder looks good. A head, I think, will fix the job. So anyhow, thanks for bearing with me here. Thanks for going along on the ride, and we'll see you next video.